This time on Rad Rat Video, we're talking about my dream tricks and why I can't do them yet. Welcome back to Rad Rat Video, a channel about skateboarding and skateboarding video games and skateboarding documentaries and all kinds of stuff. Today I'm answering some of your questions. These were all submitted through radratvideo.com. You can submit your own there at any time. This first one is from Eugene. He says, is a half impossible a trick? Like a pop shove it, but it's wrapped, as seen in, and he shows a couple of clips, which I will show you, or is there a separate name for it? So this first one, it almost looks like a pop shove it, but it accidentally flipped a little bit, and then he caught it back, but I don't think that's what happened. I think this is an intentional half impossible, because, if you were to do a pop shove it and it flipped slightly, it would look like a pressure flip, and then you would probably catch it with your front foot and flip it back slightly. So to do it all with your back foot, it really seems like that's a half impossible. And the other one is as if he's doing an impossible but spinning front side at the same time. So that one I think is just, it is an impossible, but it's a front side 180 impossible where it kind of cancels out the spin slightly. But I definitely think that's a trick because I don't think it could happen on accident the way I described it. If you were starting to do an impossible, then you changed your mind, then that could happen. But I don't think that really happens trying a pop shove it normally. There used to be a guy on a forum I would go to where he would do a half front foot impossible. He called it a hammer flip. So he would pop up, he would start to pull the board around and then just kind of flip it back as it starts to get like, if it was a perfect, fully vertical one, you can imagine popping it, doing like a half front flip, and then under flipping it halfway. Now, it's not fully vertical and all that, but it kind of starts to wrap, and then he pulls it back. And it was an interesting trick. It's clearly not just a late shove it. It clearly wraps around his foot the whole way, never loses contact with his front foot. He called it a hammer flip. Again, I don't know of a name for a half impossible off the tail other than just half impossible, but it's really cool. There's so many different ways you could do impossibles that you never really see. You could do, late impossible where you ollie and then you do it fully after you left the ground. There's frontside impossibles, wrong foot impossibles, like if you pop the tail and switch to your front foot and then do a normal impossible, it flips backside, not front side, so it's not a front foot impossible. There's a million different things, and you can spin with any of them. You can do a half front foot impossible while you spin backside and you catch up with it over there. Ton of different stuff. Skateboarding is very unlimited in the amount of things you could come up with. They don't all have names, and I don't think they all deserve names because that's just more to memorize. Half impossible is pretty clear what you're talking about. Okay. The next question is from Soon K, who says, my question is, what would be the ideal body shape, weight, and size for skateboarding? How much does your body influence your abilities? My own completely non-scientific research seems to suggest that big boys like Jamie Foy and Frankie Villani lock into grinds better because of a low center of gravity and some added weight. Tall, lanky dudes jump or ollie higher and can take more impact. And small, compact people like Daywan and Guy Mariano can spin their bodies and move or flick their limbs faster. So the ideal would be something like a Nyjah or a young Danny Way. So why isn't transition dominated by little dudes that spin fast? Does Tony Hawk's enormous body make it impossible for him to spin more than 900? His enormous body is really thin. Okay, so I think you've kind of disproved your own question in your question, which is what's the ideal body for skateboarding, because everyone has their own pros and cons. So you're saying like some of the, really long locked in grinds, like it seems like bigger guys can do that better. And I don't think it's for a lower center of gravity, but I think the more you weigh, the less friction you feel, because if your body has more mass, like it takes more to slow you down, right? So if there's a small little bump on a rail or a ledge, if you're really light, super thin, and you jump up on there, that's more likely to stop you and throw you off. If you were bigger and you have more mass, you can power right through it. So I think there is something to that. If you are a bigger guy, doing long grinds might be a little bit easier for you. And taller guys, as you said, can absorb more impact. Which is true, because if your legs are longer, that's more space that you can use to slow down when you jump off a gap. And Tony Hawk, for example, Not that he does giant drops on street, but on vert, he can use his longer legs to build up more speed. And so I think Tony Hawk being able to do a 900 on a ramp is because he can pump really well and get enough air, but he's still pretty thin, so he can pull himself in and spin quickly. And you're asking why he can't spin more. Well, no one has spun more on a normal half pipe. On a super big ramp, the pumping doesn't matter. So you can be small and do a 1080 or a 1260 or whatever, because you don't have to worry about the pumping as much. So your height kind of doesn't factor in as much. And I think your last one about smaller guys, I don't know if flick speed is really part of it as much, but your balance is definitely better. If you are taller, your balance is generally worse than if you are shorter. The best gymnasts in the world are girls who are like 5'2", you know? Like imagine, I don't have anything around me, but picture like a pencil with a steel ball on the top and you put it in your hand. That would be really hard to keep balanced. If you flip it over, steel ball on the bottom with the pencil sticking out of it, that wouldn't be that hard at all. So if your weight is lower, it's harder for you to flip over. And there's a lot of, you can draw like a triangle for the force vectors. And so if you're this tall and you lean this much, your force is like, it's the same as the amount you've tipped over in the triangle. I don't know if I'm explaining that super well. But if you're shorter, then it's less. So if you're tipped over 3 degrees, let's say, the taller you are, the more force, the more gravity force is being converted to pulling you over. So all that to say, the shorter you are, the more balance you have. So if you are a 5'2" guy, you can probably hold a manual longer than someone taller. And so your Day One songs and all these super tech guys tend to be shorter because they're able to do that stuff a little bit easier. So your question, which body type is the best? It doesn't matter, because anything that you are, what you've got right now, there is something that you will excel in because of that. My problem, I'm 6'2", which I think Tony Hawk is also 6'2". He might be 6'3". We're built kind of similarly. I don't skate a half pipe. I don't jump off big gaps and have the room to absorb the force. I like more technical stuff, which is harder for me. So you might have the bad body type for what you want to do, but there's no bad body type for skateboarding in general. The next question is from Guy, who says, why haven't you played OlliOlli or OlliOlli 2? The game is awesome. I've played both. I have a review for OlliOlli 2 right here. You may have been spelling it Ollie with an E. It's Ollie with an I, and then no space and another Ollie. Anyway, a lot of people, reason I put this in the video is because a lot of people have been requesting me to play games or review games that I've already done. I'm doing this channel for about 5 years. I've gotten through a lot of them. So make sure you search, because I may have done what you want to see already. Okay. The next question is from Sam D, who is essentially asking what a body varial is technically, because the Tony Hawk games, it had a kickflip in it and they called that a body varial, but they were censoring the old name. Here's the actual, this is where a body varial comes from. On vert, if you do like a pop shove it, you grab the board, pull around, that's called a varial. The opposite of that is when you spin more than the board, which is a body varial. So a varial McTwist would be you do a 540, the board spins extra, does a 720, and you land with the board backwards. A body varial McTwist would be if the board does a 360, you kind of spin past it and then catch it, and then you finish off the trick with the board. The board ends up doing a 360 while you do a 540. So a body varial is you spinning without the board. On street, now we've kind of adapted that. The board can be spinning the same direction as you. Well, that would usually be called a big spin. The board can either spin the opposite way of you or stay straight. You could do a kick flip, you do a heel flip, you can do an impossible late body varial, anything like that. It just means you're spinning without the board spinning with you. That's really all it means. It's like a category now instead of a specific trick. Okay. The last question is from Cathode Ray, who says, do you have a dream trick that you haven't landed yet? If so, what do you think makes it so difficult for you personally? I've come up with 3. My actual dream trick, if I could ever have an ender trick in a part, what I would have loved for it to be is a hard flip back tail, which I will never be able to do, and I'll tell you why. I'm not good at hard flips. I can kind of do them, but they tend not to spin enough, which might not be a problem landing it into a back tail. I can kickflip no slide. So if I just kind of kickflip no slide but keep my shoulders straight and try to pull my legs back, it might be possible, and I wouldn't have to worry about not being able to rotate it the whole way. But I'm also not very good at back tails. I don't think I ever learned how to back tail straight. I used to have my box in my old driveway, which would be like 15 years ago. And I think I may have done a couple of them, but the only way I could do a back tail was if I kickflipped in. Because if I tried to just spin backside, like pop and spin backside, my back truck would always like hit the side of the ledge before it got up. And I would try to pop up straight and then spin, and the board would always, like, I would have my feet kind of like this. And as I spun backside, I would flip the board about a quarter, and then I just couldn't land it that way. But if I popped up and I kickflipped, that could push the tail up and over the ledge, so then I can land in a back tail. So I could kickflip back tail, not super consistently or anything, but I could kickflip back tail easier than I could back tail. And again, did I ever do a good one where I actually slid out a decent amount of distance? I don't think so. I filmed one, kind of. I'll show you the clip if I could find it. It doesn't slide at all. But the point is, I could get into it at least. And with enough practice, if I'd kept doing it all these 15 years, I'd be pretty good at it right now. But doing a hard flip instead and not really being able to back tail that well or at all, I don't think that's really reasonable. The second trick I came up with is the exact opposite, which I didn't think of until I already compiled my list. A nollie inward heel flip, front no slide. Again, this one might be a little bit easier for me. I have done a nollie inward heel flip. I was playing an online game of Skate with my friend Tony. He does every kind of nollie and switch heel flip thing he can come up with, and that's always how he gets a free S on me, is to just do some weird heel flip thing. And if he goes first, he can generally just do a bunch of weird heel flips until I'm out. But so I was practicing, and I decided to drill this trick, and I figured out how to do it. It doesn't look good if I do it though. I assume I haven't filmed one, but I would just jump way too high so I could flick and not worry about being in the way, because I'm way up here while the board's down there. I could do it, and it would be fine for a game of Skate. I can frontside no slide better than I could back tail, but I'm still not super good at that either. So a nollie inward heel flip into a front no slide would be hard. I didn't realize that it is essentially the same thing as a hard flip back tail, where you're flipping the board and spinning the opposite way, but it's the hard version and you can land in it. I think that trick is really cool. If I'm ever just screwing around in Skate or Skater XL or anything like that, I do nollie inward heel flip. Well, I tend to do a nollie inward heel flip front crook in Skater XL. I think that trick looks really good in that game. But that would be a really cool trick. I haven't done a nollie heel flip into anything, so that one is a pretty long ways off. Last trick I thought of is a kickflip late varial heel flip, which I think is possible. It would be really, really hard. So I got kind of close to it. I was trying a kickflip back foot underflip, and it kept spinning on me on accident. It was stationary, and yeah, it didn't work that well. I wasn't getting the full flip. But if I could adapt that slightly and not try to underflip the bottom of the board, but to flick on the grip tape side, I would have to do it really, really fast. But I think it would be possible to do it. I can do a back foot varial heel flip or a semi flip. Mine are kind of on the border between those two tricks. They're very similar anyway. But I have a trick tip for a semi flip, which is more of how I view the way that I do it. But if I could do a kick flip into a semi flip instead of just the semi flip, that would be kind of a dream trick for me. I feel like I would need some kind of extra air somehow. Like if I could find a really mellow bank fly out type of thing. The only ones in town are that there's a couple of skate parks in town. They're all really steep. It would be harder for me just to do a trick up it, let alone use the air to my advantage. But if I could find some way to get a little bit extra air, maybe a little drop or something, I feel like that trick is possible. It may be the easiest of the three for me. Maybe not for you, but those are my dream tricks. Will I ever do them? Probably not, but if I do, I will definitely let you know, because I'll be pretty stoked about it. But that's it for now. If you want to submit your own question, and I hope you do, please go to radratvideo.com and submit it right there. There's just a simple form on the homepage, goes right into my inbox, and I will definitely read it. And that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you next time.